Welcome to the Titan Tar channel. Today we have a topic to discuss about Russia which will demolish Ukrainian forces in Kursk while Kiev loses ground. Don't miss the chance to join us and share your opinions with us. Become a member of our channel and evolve your rank. By launching an offensive in Russia's Kursk region, Kiev has attempted to raise the strategic stakes in the hope of gaining a better position for future negotiations. However, this tactic seems destined to fail, with Russian troops poised to drive the Ukrainian armed forces out of Russian territory. The Belarusian president, in a recent interview with a Russian television channel, expressed his conviction that this Ukrainian offensive will not achieve its intended goals. During the interview, the Belarusian president discussed the situation in Kursk, emphasizing that Zelensky, by ordering the invasion, sought to strengthen his diplomatic position. However, according to the Belarusian leader, this strategy failed, as Moscow refused to give in and will not accept any advantageous exchange for Kiev. He categorically stated that Ukrainian forces will not remain on Russian soil for long, as the Russian armed forces will inevitably demolish them. The Belarusian president stressed that for the attack on Kursk, Kiev had assembled a substantial force consisting of experienced military personnel and mercenaries recruited from various fronts. This group of invaders, being powerful, managed to quickly penetrate Russian territory. However, the Belarusian leader stressed that this force, no matter how competent it may be, will not be enough to guarantee victory for Kiev. He noted that there were no amateurs among the invaders. The fighters were carefully selected from across the front line, including combat veterans and well-trained mercenaries. Such a sizable force, according to the president, could achieve temporary success, but if Kiev continues to escalate the conflict, Ukraine's very existence will be at risk. Meanwhile, Ukraine appears to be struggling to maintain any gains it has made. Ukrainian troops are reportedly advancing up to 3 kilometers a day in the Kursk region, but losing ground in Pokrovsk and Donbass. This inability to balance gains on one front with losses on the other raises questions about the effectiveness of Ukraine's strategy. According to a British publication, the commander-in-chief of the Ukrainian armed forces said that his troops are making progress in the Kursk region. However, Russian forces appear to be advancing even faster on other fronts, especially in Pokrovsk. Kiev's attempt to force the withdrawal of Russian units from Donbass to defend Kursk has failed, leaving Ukraine in a vulnerable position. Western experts estimate that Kiev will not be able to hold the territory captured in Kursk for long. Eventually, the Russian armed forces will recapture the area, and the lost territories in Donbass are already considered irretrievable. In addition, the lack of clear information about the actual control of the Kursk region by the Ukrainian armed forces, combined with heavy losses and the need to send reserves from other fronts, further complicates the situation for Kiev. The withdrawal of troops from Pokrovsk to reinforce the offensive on Kursk is being met with skepticism within the Ukrainian ranks. Soldiers on the front line warn that such a redeployment merely shifts the problem from one area to another, without actually solving the difficulties faced. As the operation in the Kursk region continues, Zelensky's chances of success seem increasingly remote. The loss of territory in Donbass and the failure at Kursk can be attributed to the decisions of Ukraine's commander-in-chief, who is already being held primarily responsible for the setbacks. Due to the heavy losses suffered, the Ukrainian brigades that participated in the Kursk assault were withdrawn for reorganization, and second-echelon reserves were sent to the battlefield. These units, originally intended to consolidate the gains of the offensive, are now forced to actively participate in the fighting, while Kiev insists on expanding the zone of control. The situation in Kursk remains tense, with Ukrainian troops continuing to press on several fronts despite fierce battles. Reports about the capture of cities in the region do not correspond to reality, and fighting continues to rage both north and south of Sudza. In retrospect, the Ukrainian leadership's attempt to change the balance of power by storming Kursk can now be seen as a failure. Instead of forcing Russia to withdraw forces from Donbass, Kiev is now forced to move its own reserves to Kursk, leaving other fronts exposed. Western and Russian experts agree that Kiev's operation in the region is becoming increasingly unsustainable. As Russia maintains its numerical advantage and Ukraine struggles to mobilize more troops and boost morale, the Ukrainian leadership faces the harsh reality of redeploying units from one theater of operations to another. With heavy losses already recorded, the Ukrainian commander-in-chief is forced to withdraw units from the front line to reinforce the Kursk region, a move that reflects the gravity of the situation. Fighting in the Kursk region continues, but the nature of the operations has changed significantly. In the first days after the invasion, Ukrainian forces made some progress, but with the increased activity of the Russian armed forces, they have lost the ability to sustain these gains. The so-called column marches, which initially allowed Ukrainians to achieve some success, now result in the almost total destruction of armored vehicles by Russian drones and artillery. Despite losing their initial momentum, Ukrainian forces have not yet completely ceased their activities in the region. The Ukrainian military command is working to strengthen its presence in the Kursk border areas, seeking to create fortifications, maintain supplies for troops, and establish a solid base for future operations. To this end, they continue to actively use NATO communication and coordination systems, including satellite equipment, some of which has already been captured by Russian forces in the Sudzansky district. Ukrainian strike groups are working to establish a communications network in the occupied territories, deploying equipment in villages and forests. The attack on the Kursk region, according to military analysts, marked the end of any peaceful initiatives on the part of Ukraine. According to an American expert, by opting for the invasion, Zelensky eliminated the possibility of negotiations, since Russia will not be willing to sit at the table with the government in Kiev. The analyst suggests that the conflict is now heading towards an exclusively military resolution, possibly with the capture of Kiev and the surrender of Ukraine as the outcome. Russia had previously made offers to Kiev for negotiations, but these offers were withdrawn after the Kursk invasion. The Russian president has stated that there is no longer any room for dialogue with the Ukrainian regime, reinforcing Moscow's determination to resolve the conflict on the battlefield. Reports suggest that Kiev, by capturing parts of the Kursk region, hoped to negotiate a swap of territories, but Russia's refusal to talk means that Ukrainian forces there will be annihilated. Ukraine's decision to attack the Kursk region has sparked skepticism among analysts, including a political scientist in Munich who sees the strategy as high risk. He warns that such an operation could do more harm than good for Ukraine in the long run. While the Ukrainian army has demonstrated offensive capabilities after retreats in the Donbass, holding the territory captured at Kursk will require a significant military effort that would perhaps be better spent on more unstable fronts, such as the Donbass. The political scientist also points out that the Kursk operation likely featured Western weaponry, suggesting that the United States approved the action, as indicated by the use of American missile launchers, the target coordinates of which were coordinated with Washington. The lack of comment from the German government on the use of armored personnel carriers also suggests a tacit agreement. Several Western experts share similar opinions, noting that the West's direct involvement in the attack on Russia takes the conflict to a new level. The invasion of the Belgorod region, reported by the American press, is another example of Ukrainian attempts to open new fronts, although this offensive failed. Ukrainian soldiers who participated in the attack on Belgorod confirmed that Russian forces were prepared, with fortifications, explosive traps, and rapid artillery and drone attacks, making the advance extremely difficult. One of the survivors of the Belgorod offensive reported that his group was annihilated on the first day, forcing him to seek refuge in Russian trenches while waiting for evacuation, which never arrived due to equipment problems. As a result, the Ukrainian units that invaded Belgorod suffered losses of more than 60% of their personnel and were forced to retreat, often in small groups and without weapons, demonstrating the failure of the operation. Don't forget to subscribe to our channel, like the video, and share it with your friends. Your interactions mean a lot to us and help us grow. See you next time.